Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 181. I'm talking to Miguel Duranti. He is a philosopher living in Buenos Aires. He's also friends with Javier Milei. This will be our 44th show talking about Milei. How are you, Miguel?
Very good, Chris. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm not a personal friend of Milei or anything. I collaborated through the political campaign and everything, but I met him a few times. Talked to him, but no more than that. I don't have a direct line or anything with him.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I believe. Yeah. How'd you get into all this?
Well, I became a libertarian very long ago, like in 2002. Oh. I actually read those 6 conferences in Buenos Aires that this UFC fighter recommended just a little while ago. The economic policy book, it's called I think it's translated in English. It was 6 conferences that Mises did in Buenos Aires in the 50s, and I also read Road to Serfdom by Hayek, and those 2 books were enough for me at that point. I was already very since I was 14 years old, I was very anti-communist, but I wasn't still a classical liberal or anything. I was just, if I defended capitalism and markets, was out of a default position against communism, because of I studied its history, and I also read other philosophers who were not liberals, except for Ortega y Gasset. I read Ortega y Gasset very young, but I read other philosophers like Camus, for example, Albert Camus, the French philosopher, existentialist philosopher. He's more kind of a lefty guy, but he was very extremely critical of the Soviet Union once he saw what it was all about in the late 30s or mid 30s from then. So, but I like, for example, I read very young the book, the Black Book of Communism, when it came out I remember in '98. I was 14 years old. I read that book. The book is great. It documents the crimes of communism very thoroughly. But the question was, for the book was, how is it that such an egalitarian ideal could transform in something so horrible, so monstrous? And that framework didn't suit well for me. I could find that because it wasn't just one experience. It was the Soviet Union that was terrible. It was China was terrible. Eastern Europe was terrible. North Vietnam was terrible. Cambodia was terribly awful, like 21% of the population wiped out in 2 or 3 years. So it has to be more than that. And it wasn't until I read Mises and Hayek that I understood that has to happen necessarily when you try to impose a centrally planned economy.
Of course, or I haven't heard Ortega y Gasset's name in a long time. Yeah, he's certainly a big one. And of course now, more recently, Venezuela, which also is significant because a lot of those Venezuelans came down to your country and they were helping me lay out.
Yes, because they knew that down the path we will probably not be in a situation as dire as Venezuela in terms of shortage economy as they had, but we will be very miserable. We were going down the lines of a country like not say Cuba or Venezuela, but maybe Haiti, which is equally awful. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the. Do you think the Brazilian UFC fighter, Renato Moicano,
Moicano,
was?
yeah,
Do you think Milei influenced him?
probably. It's very hard to know, no.
Yeah. Although
Uh,
he speaks Portuguese, obviously, but yes, it's a. Yeah.
I don't know if he had mentioned it. I know he's doing a longer podcast right now, but I didn't listen to it. And so Moi, maybe he went down that rabbit hole not for Milei, but maybe through Bolsonaro as Bolsonaro's son, maybe because Bolsonaro's son is very. For what I've heard, he's related to the Mises Institute in Brazil or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe he heard it that way, or he.
Well, that's certainly good to know. And you met Milei in 2016, so what?
Hmm.
And you never thought he'd become, president back then, did
No,
you?
no, nobody. I mean, I was in the campaign
Yeah.
during the last year, and I believe he was going to be able to secure
Yeah.
maybe 15% of the vote, 20% of the vote would have been a complete success, and the guy becoming the head of the opposition or something like that. But no way I could imagine he won the. The thing is, I live in Capital Federal in Buenos Aires, the city of Buenos Aires, and I know around the provincia of Buenos Aires is the larger state and the suburbs of the city of Buenos Aires, where about 14 million people live. So 3 million in Capital Federal and 14 million maybe in the rest of the provincia of Buenos Aires. And for what I was able to perceive, he wasn't going to have much more than 17 and 20% in those two areas, which are the most heavily densely populated. And the elections that happened before, that were local elections for we have 24 states here, so the other 23 states, except the city of Buenos Aires and the provincia of Buenos Aires, the other 22 states would be. Milei candidates didn't do well. They had 4% of the vote, 5% of the vote. In one province, it was La Rioja. He had his candidate make 15% of the vote. This was all before the presidential election. But at one point, what happened was that all those provinces, all the 40% of the vote of those other 23 provinces, in average, voted for Milei. That I could not have predicted in any way. His candidates didn't run good at all, but himself was known all over the place. So he's kind of a rock star figure. The way he does politics is like that. He's not a standard politician. He just appears at one place for an hour or two and he disappears. So like a rock star, like a musician, you know. And
Yeah.
I think he even recognized that he's that kind of a figure of a figure.
I think this is part of what the appeal's been. He was a lead singer in a Rolling Stone cover band, so he
Yes,
so he does know something about music. And I often say he reminds me of I don't know if they know about him down there, but a guy named Johnny Cash. Uh,
yeah, I know who you're trying to get. I saw,
you
I
know,
even
he,
saw the
he
movie.
I mean, he kind of has that look. The black leather. I mean, that's often been often had this cool factor. He's made himself cool, and it looked like he got on TV once to talk about the economy and just talked about how bad things are, and that's led to a ratings increase. And ever since then, it's just been and that.
Yes,
What was that?
he has that musician look, and also
Yeah,
he was goalpost for a team, soccer team uh, in Argentina called Chacarita, and he was able to play even a few games on the top league of the
Yeah.
of the soccer team championships. Then he pursue other avenues, studying economics and everything. But I think he had a problem. Maybe I'm not sure, but I think he had he hurt himself or something like that. But anyways, so he's kind of. Do you know? Have you heard about? We were talking earlier about philosophers. One philosopher I like very much right now, which I believe is probably the most important philosopher in academic terms, is on the classical libertarian side. I mean, it's Jason Brennan. I don't know if you heard of him.
I know of Jason Brennan. Yes.
He's a professor in Georgetown, and he has this way of explaining the political science findings since the 60s regarding different kind of testing and experiments that are done on political thinking among the people. And he has this distinction between the hobbits, the hooligans, and the Balkans. He says that in a democracy we have three ideal types of people. We have the hobbits, those like in the Lord of the Rings. They are not concerned with politics, not concerned with the Middle Earth events. They just want to do their own things. So they're citizens which are politically uninformed and politically apathetic. That's probably most of the people is like that. And then you have the hooligans. The hooligans are informed people, but they are so biased in the way they are informed that they only reinforce their own prejudices, and they experiment politics as a kind of a clash of identities. They're hooligans of their position. They're just fanatics. And finally, there are few who can be Balkans, people who are rational, who try to think the pros and cons of every politics, that they know they can be wrong, so they take precautions not to be or the least or to be the least influenced by their own bias. So that would be probably nobody or very little, and nobody is one thing or the other purely, but it teaches us that, well, and what he says is, like, in the political practice, John Stuart Mill used to believe that to be in politics could make us better citizens. It could take us from the rank of the uninformed, from the hobbits, and convert us to Balkans. But that was in the 19th century. We didn't have all the experimenting testing that we have right now. And what we know right now is that John Stuart Mill was absolutely wrong. Like the practice of politics in a democracy, where is one man, one vote, takes people from the ranks of hobbits and turns them into fanatics, into hooligans. And that is true for every political lineage, including libertarians, I would say. And Milei, if he was able to run so much support to him, it was in his quality of a hooligan, not in terms of his knowledge of economics and academic credentials. So he really was able to pass the message through, and that's something that the libertarians and classical liberals were not able to get enough. A person with enough charisma to attract a significant amount of the vote.
Yeah,
that would be the explanation of why this hooligan rock star was able to maybe reach so much. Well, that would be at least half of the explanation. The other half would be that we have 20 years of terrible governments, so 24, 23 years of terrible, terrible government since the crisis of 2001. We have accumulated a crazy amount of inflation, devaluation of the peso, and he entered with two clear messages. One was this is the fault of the political chaste would be yes the casta.
Cast, yes.
Yes, but yeah, and it's also and also a message of ending inflation through adopting the U.S. dollar, which I know that you might think that that's crazy. But just think how desperate we are that we are willing to adopt the U.S. dollar as our currency of denomination. I mean, of normal use. I mean.
Well, the dollar already has become a de facto currency down there, and this is something. And a lot of libertarians seem to think it can all just happen overnight, and they don't understand that you have to treat the symptoms immediately before you start to go in and really overhaul everything. He seems to understand that. He also explains all of that very well. Treating the symptoms, but then going in and really fixing the disease and figuring things out. It's kind of amazing, the amount of people who think they know better. I'm appreciating just how difficult this undertaking is, and I've got to say, after seeing how difficult his own undertaking is, it's making me realize that it would be much more difficult to do it here, and I don't think America is. If Argentina can be salvaged, I think that's great, but I don't think America is salvageable anymore. I really don't.
Well, we don't.
Yeah.
Like we have a very, I would say this, the difference with America. We have a very inefficient, shitty, I would say, deep state here. Like the intelligence agency here, they just watch, like they just spy on politicians to try to obtain bribes and stuff like that. We don't have the surveillance state that the U.S. has become, and so I do believe that makes change very, very, very difficult in the U.S. And that's one of the difficulties we don't have. We have other problems. We have very powerful unions and industrial union. We call it the Unión Industrial Argentina. They block any way we can open the economy.
Yeah.
It's the union of enterprise that are in the industry. They for example, from toys to steel to whatever. So we have a very close economy, and we have a very tight labor market, which is completely insane. But Milei is little by little entering that area. Like he was able to pass a watered down version through the House. At least we still need to see what happens in the Senate. A very watered down version of the original law with labor reforms. One of those labor reforms is, for example, that you can, and which I believe in myself is very important. You can hire collaborators. He invented this figure of the collaborator, not the worker.
Yes.
You're hiring a collaborator, up to 5 collaborators, without having them in a what we call a dependency relation. Here we call once you have worker, employee, employer. That's a dependency relation. So this is like kind of a gray area where you can hire 5 people and not call them your workers. You can call them collaborators. So they don't collect rights to have to be in case you fire them, you're not obliged to compensate them, and they cannot they cannot, since they're not in a relationship of dependency, they cannot do what we call here juicio laboral, would be a labor trial or a labor or suing the employer for alleged misconducts in the labor relation. Which here it's a whole industry. We call it the industria of the juicio laboral, the industry of labor trials or labor demands. And he was able to do that. And I believe that if we could, for example, that's just what I say is just entering with it, because it's only 5 people. But if you increase that number from 5 to, let's say, 100 collaborators that you can hire, then labor laws become very much more flexible, because nobody up to 100 employees, for saying one thing, will not hire anyone on the usual or the old labor laws that we have. They will all hire them as collaborators, and the old system, even without reform, would have a slow death. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the old system could be there, slow death, while all the new other workers that come to the system can come under this figure of collaborator. And so to introduce that already would be a huge win, if we could increase that number later. But we have to think the way the left thinks in that regard. If we can do only one thing, let's do that thing, and then let's just keep pushing for more reforms on the correct side, and never stop pushing for those reforms, because that's what the left does. We need to learn that from them. So that would be my take on some of the things that are happening now.
Yeah, that's yeah. The the other things, I sometimes wonder. It seems like in some countries, it's easier to deal with people who just want to get in there for the power and the money, because if they can just get the power and the money, they don't really care how they get it. But at least it seems like in America, we have people who are more ideological, and they're really dedicated to the cause, or whatever they think the cause is. They think their cause is somehow a righteous cause, and they don't necessarily care if they end up. But not to mention, they seem to be more credible if they're that way. It's really difficult. I also think you still have more of a culture of family there. America has none of that anymore. It's completely gone.
I would say that we are also in crisis in that sense. I mean, there are several things that make it very difficult. If you ask me, what I believe makes it very difficult here is that, and that I don't think Milei got it, is that it's impossible to get a house. And that is mainly caused, I would think, by housing regulation. It is also caused because we don't really have a credit system or a real currency. We just have painted paper, which is. But the problem of housing regulation is a very, very big problem. Like there's this economist, you might know him. His name is Brian Kaplan.
Oh yeah, Brian Kaplan. Yes,
he says one of the two ways, like of the government really hurts people, especially poor people, is through housing regulation, by making the prices of houses artificially expensive.
I was referring more to the fact, though, that you have whether or not people can buy houses. If you have a culture that encourages people to get married and stay married, or do you have a culture here where it's completely discouraged now?
Yeah, I would say the culture in general, but it is hard to pinpoint that as a culture thing, because like the whole environment induce you to the present, in the sense that the inflation we have, the complete, it's better to consume now than to save for the future, because you're not able to plan anything. Just for people, maybe they don't know on the other side, but last year we have 211% inflation. 211% inflation.
Yes.
That's our consumer price index of the last year, the whole year from January to December. This year, thanks to Milei, because he did everything he could, because you have to understand that you cannot stop inflation on a halt like that. Even Ecuador, when they're dollarized, they had 96% inflation the first year they adopt the dollar, and then the second year they have 38%. So
I mean, it's just like your car's going 100 miles an hour and you hit the brakes. It doesn't stop immediately.
Yeah. So thanks to the measures that Milei is making, like he's trying to, he's balancing the budget at whatever cost. We might have this year, and it would be a great success to have 150% inflation. That would be a great success. Maybe less than that would be even a greater success. I mean, but 150% for this year would be a great success.
Well, it looks like things are getting better than that. The peso seems to be stabilizing against other currencies. So
that's true. It's stabilized against the dollar, and now we have Milei is trying also to fix the relative price distortion we have, because one of the worst things we have is we have subsidies for electricity, natural gas, transportation. Like we pay right now, we're paying like 30 cents for a bus ticket, 30 cents, and that price should be around the dollar. So the same thing, the prices we're paying for electricity, just I think I have here my electricity bill. Let me show it.
Yes.
This is it. So 4,000 pesos. That's $4.7 for a month electricity, which and it says here, it used to say, I don't know if right now if they say it anymore, but it used to say subsidized by the national government. They still subsidize. So that's what I pay a month for electricity here. I mean, I don't consume much, but my consumption should be the price I should pay if the prices were not subsidized would be probably 5 or 6 or 7 times more than what I paid.
Are most of the subsidies and distortions coming from the feds? Because I know here in America, almost all of the transportation subsidies are local. That the federal government is hardly in that, is not really in that at all. But there are lots of subsidies coming from more local governments, like the city.
Here everything comes from the federal government, and it is concentrated on the city of Buenos Aires and the surrounding areas, the suburbs of the city of Buenos Aires. The more you get away from the city and the suburbs of Buenos Aires, the less subsidies there are, and people pay more akin to the real price of energy and transportation.
Yeah. It looks like they got a fairly robust system down there. I have to admit, I didn't try using it though, because Ubers were so cheap anyway. But of course, for a lot of gringos, when they go abroad, Ubers are cheap. So but it might not be quite that way for the people who live there. And they were.
No, for us it's not as cheap, but we recognize that it is. Much cheaper than it probably should be right now. Right now we are having inflation in what we call in dollar terms. Like I had a friend from Houston. We went to a restaurant, Last time we went in 2019, we pay $30 per person. Now we paid 75. The same restaurant. It is true that also that restaurant it's a tourist niche. It's very famous around the world and everything. So they profit from that. But the prices have gone in dollar terms way up in the last,
Yes.
I would say, 6 months or maybe 6 months from now, or probably more, 10 months.
Yeah.
They
Well,
will.
if a place, trust, I know from experience, if places get their mostly American customers or whatever, they pretty soon realize they can charge American prices, and they do.
Mhm.
And then the whole, well, I went to Mexico, was it cheap because it was cheap? And well, the cheap Mexico doesn't really exist in a lot of places anymore. And it
Mhm.
all depends on how many Americans are there. But I'm just saying that because a lot more Americans go to Mexico. But yeah, so uh, so what did you notice during Milei's rise? What was he doing that hadn't been done before?
Well, he uh, he constructed an explanation that the people was ready to hear.
Yeah,
That's just it. And he screamed that explanation from, I mean, an explanation from for the troubles and for the problems that Argentina had and the way out. And he screamed that explanation over and over and over again on the television screens
yeah,
for as longer as he could. And then after when the lockdowns came in, at one point he decided, after the fourth or fifth month of lockdown that we have like 7 month continuous lockdown.
yeah,
He decided to enter into politics. That was in 2020, like, let's say September 2020. uh, and the guy was already known all over the
yeah,
place. He couldn't walk without people recognizing him and shouting at him, "Oh, Milei!" I remember I was once I that was in I think it was in 2021 when I was starting working in some aspects of the campaign, and he came where we were, in a street and avenue in Buenos Aires. There's nobody in the streets. And um, we were on the sidewalk, very wide avenue, and from the other side of the wide avenue, a cyclist was passing through, and the guy screams, "Milei!" Like, how did you recognize the guy? I mean, you are like 35 meters away from him on that avenue, and you recognize him on the street, on the sidewalk. That was like the moment, like I realized. I also realized that everything was changing. Like, for example, I have friends who teach at public universities that were telling me, uh, my hey Miguel, my colleagues are very worried. That was in 2017 or 2018 already. Are very worried that the college classes are getting filled with small groups of libertarians. I was like, Jesus, that's interesting. At one point, I remember that was in 2019.
yeah,
I was walking down the street, and I passed to a small store where they sell chocolates and all those stuff, candy, and I, I I was hearing a voice coming out through the radio in English, and so I kept walking, and I must have walked like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 feet, and I just stopped flat, and I came back, and I said to the guy, "Are you listening to Milton Friedman?" And the guy says, "Yes, yes, I'm listening." Oh, okay. That was like when a store it wasn't the owner. I mean, the store employees listening to Milton Friedman in English, an Argentinian guy listening in English. I mean, it's just it makes you start thinking that things are changing. But you're not. I didn't realize it would become like this. Not now, at least. Not in this election. Probably the next one, but not in this one. That took me by surprise. I think it took by surprise the Milei campaign also. I must say, but
Yeah. And that's really good to know, though, because I think he's really getting this younger block of voters, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, he starts off with this one show with Alejandro Fantino, and it just goes from there gradually. He's also getting getting very close to 3 million Twitter followers. He had about 1 million Twitter followers a year ago at this time, but
no, his message is been growing
yes,
like hell. He's being. I would like a personality. I would say that I would like a personality more like Ron Paul, but what he's doing is just it dwarfs everything Ron Paul did, which was impressive in his time.
oh, Ron Paul never came close to winning the presidency, though, and also. Ron Paul was a lot older. I mean,
Yes,
I think
yes,
Milei is at that point where he's still young enough that he can come off and really be cool, and it's yeah, and not to mention it's maybe this is because the situation has gotten worse. I mean, he's really got this energy level and just this appeal that seems to be working out. He's very knowledgeable, and he's so well versed in all these economic theories. And it sounds like to me he didn't necessarily start that way. He really evolved to this position of becoming in favor of free markets and becoming a libertarian. That's what
well,
I
yes.
found out about him too.
He
Yes,
he tends to say that. Well, he says that he used to be more like because his specialty is in mathematical economics, econometrics, all of that. And he said that he tells the story. He said that at one point somebody gave him chapter 10 of Man, Economy and State by Rothbard. It's called the Monopoly and Competition. That's the chapter. And he read those 150 pages or so, and he was transformed after reading that, which I can understand because I know how good that chapter is. I've read it a few times. I thought it in several classes that I gave. So I know how good it is, and I can understand that you get transformed by reading that. So after that, he just followed through. He read Mises, he read Hayek, he read other Austrians that might be in line. He knew already a lot about Friedman, about Milton Friedman and Robert Lucas, and other neoclassical economists that are very classically liberal, even libertarian at some point. Yeah, I would say classically liberal. I mean, and he made like I don't know, like his own way of communicating the message of each of those thinkers without marrying with any particularly one of those. I would say.
yeah, it's
Like, for example, his original reform of his original proposition of eliminating the central bank contained a proposition or the idea of installating a Simon system of banking. That's Herbert Simon was an economist of the Chicago School in the 50s. He 40s or 50s. This and when I read what it was about, it was the same as the proposition that very much like, at least, that the idea of the 100% reserve system that Rothbard defended started defending in the early 60s, I believe. He went with that. At first, he was talking about eliminating the central bank and installing a Simon banking system. And then he realized maybe that message is too complicated. He should maybe use other words. At one point, somebody told him, no, look, what we have to do, what is doable, is to adopt the dollar as Ecuador did, which I know quite a lot about the Ecuador system, because it's contrast. When you contrast what Ecuador did in the year 2000 by adopting the dollar with what Argentina did in 2001, that was abandoning the convertibility, that was close to a dollarization, or close to a dollar system, or a pure dollar system. Not quite, because the peso was circulating, but when you compare those two experiences, you get like two completely different stories, even though Ecuador and Argentina are very much alike. They have the same corrupt politicians. They have the same level of spending to GDP ratio, around 40%, 42%. They have a closed economy. Like Ecuador ranks in the economic freedom index. It ranks at the 118 number, 118 position, and Argentina is about 144 or 146. There's like 20 or 30 numbers in difference, but it's very small amount of points in total, in absolute terms. And it's the same category of countries, what the index call. I'm talking about the Heritage Foundation Economic Freedom Index. They're in the same category of countries. They're in a category called mostly repressed in terms of economic freedom. So, and what are the results of adopting the dollar versus going back to the peso system and just print money out of thin air without any control? Well, Ecuador tripled their GDP per capita. They had $2,000 in the year 2000. They have $2,000 per capita, and now they have over 6,000. So they tripled it. Poverty went down from 65% to less than 30%. And even inequality in the Gini index came down like 13 points, from 57 to 43, 47, 53 to 43 or something like that. No, 57 to 43. 13 points, around 13 points increase, or not how you say, 13 points improvement in equality. So, and what happened to us? We have a GDP that is flat, GDP per capita that is flat. Since 2011, actually, we lost like 20%, maybe more. So, and we have a poverty rate that was about 25% or 30% in the late 90s, early 2000s. It went, after the crisis of 2001, it went sharply up, but then it went sharply down. So let's say 30%. Right now, we have a poverty rate of over 50%, measured in the same ways. I mean, I'm not trying to fool anybody with this. We are the inflation we have is just crazy, absolutely crazy. Ecuador controls its inflation in 3 years. They came from 90% inflation, 96% inflation to 8% inflation in 3 years. And then they didn't have They didn't reach even 5% on any year. Sometimes it has less inflation than the US on some of the years since they adopted the dollar. And they have a populist leader also. They have Correa from the 2010s to he was like I believe he was either 8 or 10 years in power. Correa did everything he could to try to eliminate the dollar, but the dollar was more popular than him, and the economy kept growing even with that populist leader doing everything he could to destroy it by having fiscal deficits every year. But he couldn't. He wasn't able to. So dollarization it's a solution for a country like Argentina, filled with populist leaders and populist politicians. It might not be the best solution we can have. I can think of any number of others, but it's a doable solution. And Argentinians, in a sense, they know that because we are one of the countries that has the most amount of physical dollars, physical paper in our possession. So not only deposits or bank deposits or that are not in Argentina but in other countries like Switzerland, United States, Uruguay, or whatever, but also physical dollars under the mattresses and under the safety security box. So all it takes would be to adopt it to really start the thing going for me. That's one criticism that I might have to Milei's government, is that he's not pushing the dollarization process fast enough. But as you said, maybe I think you said earlier, maybe I'm humble about that. I mean, it's an objection, but it's a minor objection because I believe he will do it once he thinks the economy is a little more stabilized. But personally, I would like it to or I would have liked to go on that direction in a faster way. But you can't do everything. He chose to fight for this law to deregulate the economy and everything. So I cannot disagree with that. So it might be just a difference of order of the reforms. So
yes, it's a lot of reforms. Yeah. He's actually apparently coming back to Austin again next week, and he's going to meet with Elon Musk for the second time. What do you make about that?
Jesus, I didn't know. Well, he's trying to have a Starlink. I think Starlink is already authorized to enter Argentina. If I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I think in general terms is great. Particularly, I don't think the cars that Elon Musk sells are very good, but in everything else, looks like he's a legit guy trying to fight for free speech, and he's more a force of good than a force of evil. That's what I would say for what I know, of what I can very superficially see. I'm not an expert on those.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's also possibly bringing some kind of factory down there. I mean, with the lithium and the batteries, it's
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you'll have a big market for Teslas down there, but it certainly could be very interesting to get the batteries done or something like that. There's a lot of things happening. I think they also realize they have common enemies, and yes.
So you might know Alex Epstein.
Yeah, Alex. I know who Alex Epstein is. Yes.
Yeah, I read his books, and just the moral case for fossil fuels, and the last one, fossil future, which I think is absolutely great. And he convinced me that there is a lot of future for the fossil fuels, and I don't think the electric cars are gonna be up to the task. So that's what makes me a little suspicious about the whole electric car, and the Elon Musk relationship with those cars, the Tesla car, and everything. So that's
Yeah, I'm not opposed to fossil fuels, but I mean but I think like everything else, they'll probably get replaced though. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be electric. I mean, maybe they'll figure out fuel cells, nuclear power. I mean, there's a lot of different things they can do. It's
yeah, but they're pushing an agenda to try to ban not only, I mean, cars with the normal engine, with the gas engine. For example, in Europe, I think they passed like a law in I think it's through the whole European Union. Like they don't want to, or was it only in Spain? But yeah, but there are moves all over Europe countries for banning in 2035 or 2040 all cars that are not electric or something like that, which I believe is like completely nuts, and they won't follow through on that. Or well, I want to think they won't follow through on that regulation, because it will be absolutely crazy.
yeah, it will be crazy. He got recently highlighted. He got this omnibus bill passed, and it looks like he's going to be able to do a lot more. What do you think? How do you think he got this bill passed? I mean, because he doesn't have nearly a majority in either house of the Congress. What the Senate and that Chamber of Deputies? What made them want to give him this?
Well, 50% would be that nobody wants a political crisis where Milei has to step down, because every politician knows that what Milei is doing is adjusting the economy, and it's something that no politician wants to do. All politicians think they have to be demagogues and increase spending. That's one thing. The other thing, and well, there's no polite way to say it. Like, when you see the structure of government, the way influences are being trafficked, positions in government, people from even people from the last government that are still in positions of power, the only thing you can think of is there is a pact, like an agreement of share governing of the country, and Milei is negotiating a few things, being not as strict on a few things, just to get what he wants. So I'm saying that directly or indirectly, both ways, Milei is bribing the opposition. So
he's bribing or driving?
Bribing would be. He's bribing the opposition.
How's he bribing the opposition?
Mostly with positions of powers in different kinds of positions of government. I mean, for example, the most notable, we had an ambassador in Brazil in the last government, the Brazil ambassador of the last government, Alberto's government. I mean, Alberto and Cristina Kirchner government, called Daniel Scioli. It's called Daniel Scioli. Daniel Scioli was a candidate that ran against Macri in 2015 in Cristina's party. Cristina couldn't be a candidate anymore, and so Scioli, who was the governor of the province of the Buenos Aires, in the belonging to the Kirchnerismo for the last 8 years before that, went to become the presidential candidate of Cristina Kirchner in 2015. He then came back after Macri's government as an ambassador of Brazil for the Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Kirchner's government from 2019 to 2023. And now he's the Secretary of Tourism. What the hell do we need that? But yeah, the Secretary of Tourism of Milei's government.
Yeah.
That's a very high ranked position in the government. So, and that's the most salient cases. There are second and third lines that belong to that have been allocated to Peronist and Kirchnerist politicians, and lots of them. So he doesn't really have libertarians in the government.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
Which
So
can be a major problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, look, at one point I was related with people that was in the housing, that was going to be in the housing secretary, or he was going to become a person who was going to become a housing secretary for Milei. And he really wanted to deregulate stuff. Like the guy really knew what to do. We were about a team of eight people. And Milei just did a pact with other Peronists, and he just moved the person to a second. Not to a second. He just removed it from any possibility of having a position, because this guy only wanted to be the Secretary of Housing because he knew a lot about it, and he knew how to deregulate it, and without any fiscal cost, without increasing taxes or increasing spending or anything, just through the deregulation. And he just decided that's not an important thing, and so that would be my criticism of the people that surround Milei, if you want. That might be a problem. Yes, but right now we have much bigger problems. I have to recognize that, as I already said, the inflation rate, the possibility of a bank run or anything. For example, I said that I would very much prefer Milei to advance faster on the dollarization agenda, but I also have to recognize that there is a real danger of a bank run, and when you are in power, you must try to do everything to avoid that bank run, and dollarization might trigger it. Or I can imagine that dollarization when the economy is not stable enough might trigger a bank run. So, which is very possible. I mean, 211% inflation last year, 150 this year, I would say. That's or 100. We will have to see the numbers. Inflation is coming down every month, but it still is a very real possibility to have a bank run, and maybe he's waiting for that, for a more stable situation. I'm sure he's waiting for a more stable situation. I think personally that he got that backwards, that dollarization will increase the stability of the system. But that's what happened in Ecuador. But on the other way, that would be an argument. The deposits came back to Ecuador system very fast when they adopt the dollar. But I also have to say that, as a difference to Ecuador, Ecuador had the dollarization applied when they already had a lockdown on the bank deposits. Nobody could take the money out of the banks. So they dollarized, and soon after the dollarized, deposit came back. Since we don't have a lockdown around the deposits, I might imagine Milei is wary about that, and that's why he didn't win on that route faster.
Yeah, that's a the bank runs. Yeah, you don't want to have that. That never looks good. It could really send a lot. And I'm also hearing, though, there have been a lot of threats of general strikes and stuff like that. Some of the people, the government workers, not to mention all these. He's also cut off the free college for all these foreign students, which is just an insane policy. I mean, I don't know what in the world would ever make you think that was a good idea. Just, oh, hey, come here and we'll give you free college. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's a crazy idea.
Yeah.
But I would say that and I come from the public university, just close the damn thing, close it. It's just a black hole of money. Now, I realize that can't be done. Maybe you can put eventually charge for it, a fee, put a fee on it. But right now, I don't think it is the fight you wanna. I mean, it's much important. It's much more important, I believe, for example, to fight against the unions than to also throw yourself the students against you. I'm just making a political prudence argument. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying that is not legit to try to put a fee on the universities or to cut funds from the universities. That's what Milei did. He cut about 30% funding on real terms for the universities. Actually, Alberto's government did that with Massa, but what Massa was doing was they freeze the budget, but they use discretionary spending to pay the right people. Let's say when you do not pay the right people, sometimes you get this kind of student march. I'm not saying that the students are paid. I'm saying that it starts with a great political motivation to agitate it, and then students who probably should know better get in the political agenda of darker interests.
Yeah, exactly. And people, when something's free and you suddenly start charging for it, yeah, people are going to protest. And I suppose they're being encouraged by the professors to go out and protest too, because if there's less students, that means the professors lose their jobs. So, not to mention, the situation with the college professors in South America, from what I hear, is just as bad or worse than it is up here. They're all a bunch of socialists, right?
Many are, but I know several people that we would call, maybe I'm going to coin a term: classical left liberal. So classical left liberal would be somebody that is not woke and
Yes.
believes in capitalism with a welfare state. But those people know those people. I have lots of friends on that position that they know very well that the Argentinian system is no more a capitalist system. That is completely regulated. It is not an autocracy. It is not. It is an open air madhouse. That's what Argentina is in economic and terms. So, and they know very well that what Milei is asking for is correct. His forms might not be very nice, but up to the moment, he hasn't violated the constitution or anything. He only used legal ways. I mean, by legal, I mean conceived upfront in the constitution, like the decretos de necesidad de urgencia, no? The necessity of urgence decrees would be the translation, I think. I mean, direct executive orders by the president that need to be ratified or not by Congress. That's what he did. And also, he also accepted that parts of his executive order, his original executive order before this law, was stopped by labor tribunals. By labor tribunals, stopped part of that decree, and he accepted that. He didn't try to overthrow the decision of the courts or anything. So right now he has the support of those classical left liberals. That I know it for sure.
Yeah, and of course the labor laws are changing. It's going to be actually easier to fire people, even in the private sector. Apparently, that was very difficult. You had this informal economy, so that's another positive step. So we've certainly seen a lot of positive change down there. What do you think's going to happen? What are any predictions you've got for the next 2 or 3 years? I mean, what do you think's going to happen there? I mean,
it's very hard to predict the future. I'm concerned that he will not be able to maintain the balanced budget. Maybe that would be a problem for international and local trust on his, because he's putting most of his cannons on doing that. If he is able to do that, and if the law, he's able to do that for 6 months. I mean, 6 more months, and if the law, this law passes through the Senate, I think we are in a fast way to recovery, and in a sustainable recovery, because it is easy to recover 1 year, but then what we have in Argentina is our ups and downs every year. The economy goes up 1 year, goes down like the last year, the next year, then it goes up for 1 year, then it goes down for 2 years, then it goes up for 2 years, and that's why what I told you earlier. We have a GDP per capita that is about 20% less than the one we had in 2011, for example, just to give you a date. So we have a completely lost decade and a half in Argentina. With the reforms that Milei is doing, he's setting the base for a sustainable recovery. The thing is, he really needs to adopt the dollar. He really needs to go and do that, because dollarization is the only irreversible reform that you can adopt. The other reforms, if Milei loses next, or his party loses on 2027, and a Peronist government comes back, which is very much possible, they will try to undo everything Milei did, and they will succeed at least in part, but they will not be able to force people to accept back the peso. That they will not be able to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really wonder a lot. I've been wondering a lot about that. I said, yes, it's great that he can do all this, but then how easy would it be for somebody to just come in there and turn it all back and just say, okay, we're.
Mhm.
I mean, if you can do it by if you can cut the stuff by executive order, you can get rid of the stuff by executive order. So
Some of it, yes.
yeah,
Some of it, yes. But by executive order, you can do a few things, like, for example, increasing or lowering taxes, and there are other few things that you cannot do by executive order, which Milei didn't do. So he went
yes,
with. So, but anyways, that's why I'm very. I believe it's very important the example of Ecuador. What Ecuador went through with the Correa government shows you that it is the most that dollarization is the most resistant reform to populist leaders. I mean, is it completely bulletproof? Probably not. I could think a way or two in which it could be overturned. For example, letting each local state to issue their own currency. That would be a way. But even then, it would be better to have the dollar and each state with every with their own currency printed by each state printing their own currency than to have the peso and each state printing their whole currency, their own currencies, like we had in the late 90s, early 2000 experience before the 2001 2002 crisis. Like we had, along with the peso, the convertible peso, we also have around, if I don't recall badly, 17 different currencies printed by local governments. We even had an alternative currency printed by the federal state. So we had the peso printed by the federal state and also an alternative currency printed by the federal state, plus 16 others from the different provincias from the different other states. So
yes,
so that was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that could happen again, maybe with the dollar, but it would still be better than and much better than what the alternative of keeping the peso is.
yeah. That, as you pointed out, that's the one thing that cannot be reversed. I think that would forever, at least, yeah, or at least would be very difficult for it to go back. Uh, but what is the general mood though? I mean, I saw I've seen his books out there. I mean, it sounds like he's really just getting out there and changing minds. Would you agree that he's changing minds? He's turning the public into being free market people. They're actually you got boxers talking about Mises. I mean, this seems like it's a good thing.
Yes, yes, yes. In a kind of, as I said, hooliganistic way. Most people are not going to read Human Action. Most people are not even going to read Economic Policy, the six lessons. But he is making people understand. He's making people understand. I think it was Bastiat who said, everybody is now suspecting that the government is too costly. Everybody knows that the government is too costly. They are starting to suspect that the cost is being supported by them. I think that's Bastiat phrase, and that's what Milei is making right now. He's making starting to make people conscious that it's them who pay on one way or the other. Each of and any one of us pays, even if you belong to the public, if you're a public employee or whatever. Uh, Everybody is paying more than it could receive when you have a government. You either pay directly on taxes or you pay indirectly in terms of lost opportunities that you can see just by or you can conceive those lost opportunities by looking at the outside world, by looking at other countries, and see what a normal worker in a normal regulatory environment. Not that I like it, but I'm much more libertarian than that. But I like when you see countries like Switzerland or Ireland or in Portugal, you might or Peru or Chile.
Yeah.
You would very much like to be in that environment where you have an horizon of growth than what you have here, that is complete stagnation, because there is no other way to describe it. Complete stagnation. The only way we are not absolutely stagnated is because the rest of the world is progressing, and we, in a way, we are benefiting from that progress, from those innovations, from from people visiting and all that stuff, but yeah, he's changing minds. He's changing minds. At least the examples that I told you in the universities, it was completely like when I went to university in the early 2000s. I mean, it was the word liberal. Like here, liberal. We use the word liberal in a different sense.
Yes.
The word, let's say, classical liberal, was an insult. I mean, an insult would be to give it too much credit. It was like nothing, like no reaction. Like that word didn't even register in them at all. Like I was like kind of one of those, we say here, that Jewish friend you presume to show you're tolerant. So I was friends of different people there while I was doing my degree, and I was presented like the crazy guy who had sometimes good arguments for crazy stuff, isn't it? And that was all through the 2000s and early 2010s. I started seeing to change around 2015. Milei started appearing more and more in the TV, but other economists, classical, more classical liberal economists, had also a growing audience. And I said, things are probably changing right now. Maybe I should get together with other libertarians. At that point, I wasn't really. I had my friends, my family. I didn't get together with other libertarians. But at that point in 2015, I thought maybe the time is changing. Maybe we now we need to regroup, or to group at least. And since then, it has been maybe an exponential increase of that of the exposure of that message, and I think it's gonna continue for a few years before stagnating.
Let's certainly hope so. I mean, it's and maybe this could be reverse trends all over South America would be a very positive step in for these countries. I'm also hearing something about these car registries that are being eliminated. What can you tell me about that?
Well, those are normally ways politicians pay their people. They put them in those car registries. They have employees who work there, and
Yeah.
it's a place where you can hide your own. We call them gnocchis. And gnocchis are people who go to collect, who don't go to work. They go to collect the salary on the 29th of every month. The doesn't matter why we call them like that, but it has to do that in the. It is like kind of a tradition to eat gnocchis. It's a pasta. It's a pasta preparation on the 29th every month here. Like it's classical. You go to a restaurant on the 29th and you ask for gnocchis and they have it. So we call those kind of employees that go to collect their salary. They don't go to work except for the day they go to collect or to cash their money on the 29th. So and what those people do politics. They don't work, but they do politics in behalf of their political bosses at different levels. And so Milei is like he went and attacked that relatively small box of corruption, I would say, and also repeal the stupid regulations we have for driving cars and for registering them. Like when you sell a car, it doesn't matter if it is a shitty old car, 20 years old. You have to tell the AFIP. The AFIP is our local IRS.
Yeah.
You have, besides your driver's license and the there's a green card called the Cédula Verde that is the register of the car. They also ask you, let's say you're not the real owner of the car is under the name of your wife or the
Yes.
son or whatever. If you want to drive the car, you need to go and do the Cédula Azul, not green anymore, not the green card for the car anymore, but the blue card for you that authorizes you to drive your wife's car. It's just stupid. And if they find you, the police stops you, and you don't have the blue card, they might take your car. If you don't have that blue card, you're driving a car that has the green card under the other people's name. They just take your car. You can bribe them and you go through.
Yeah.
But, normally.
But if I'm out, but say if I'm out driving my brother's car and the police pull me over, they might take the car. Is auto theft that much of a problem down there? It sounds like this was a response to, it sounds like something like this is a response to auto theft or people stealing cars. Is that a major problem, a major crime problem?
Look, it's not more of a major problem than other types of crimes. I haven't seen the statistics particularly, but I wouldn't say it's worse than normal hijacking of people in the streets or anything like that, or even. I might imagine that is a bigger problem than house entries, for example. But
then what?
Than house invasions.
Oh, home invasions. Okay, invasions. That's true. Yeah.
And anyways, that kind of measure doesn't do much for anything. If it was a big problem,
Yeah. Well,
it only annoys people, and it's an opportunity for corruption, and also an opportunity for increasing government employees, offices, and everything.
Yeah. Well, and for a lot of people, the car is the most valuable thing they own. It's if they don't have a house, that's something they use to get around. Home invasions are not really a not. It's amazing how when you have a culture where a lot of people have guns, you don't
Not a problem there in Texas. I'm
get
sure
home
it's not a
invasions.
problem.
You get it's it's very rare for there to be a burglar to show up when people are at home. It's just Argentina, from what I hear, still has a fairly negative attitude toward guns. Unfortunately, I hope they can change that.
No, that's
Yeah,
that's a no-no.
I know Milei wants to, but I don't think he talks much about it.
No. I mean, it's a no-no. He knows that he will turn
Yeah,
public opinion down immediately.
yeah,
Immediately. It's
yeah,
more like an underground thing, like we libertarians, militant libertarians, either hooligans or Balkans,
yeah.
know very well that they should be legal. They should be very
Yes,
little, very little regulations other than maybe a criminal check, and that's it. And
yes,
then one day they give you a gun, and that's it. You do the criminal check. Here you can get your own criminal check in.
yeah,
That's all. You get it in 5 hours or 8 hours, I think. So you go there, you present that, and just get the gun, and that's it. That should be it. Uh,
yes,
Here we have a different regimen for owning a gun and carrying a gun. Uh, if you carry the gun, you have to, for example, you wanna use it to go to a place where you can learn to shoot. You need to transport the gun uh, uh, in pieces, disarm completely in pieces, and then you have to assemble the gun on the shooting range, do your practice, then dismember the gun again and go back to your place. I mean, it's just I don't know. In the states, I might imagine maybe some states in the U.S. have those kind of regulations, but here is all over the country. Here's all over the country. The idea that should not be centralized is is uh, is unthinkable. I remember. Look, I remember when I saw the Ron Paul campaign in 2007, 2008, when he was running as
yes,
and there were like 11 people there, and it was, I think, Giuliani, well,
yes,
McCain, yeah, they were like 11, and they were discussing the need for a federal ID card.
yes,
Um, Everybody was in favor of the ID card, federal ID card. They were saying yes, it has to be federal with a photograph, a fingerprint, and whatever, all the information. And Ron Paul was saying, "I'm absolutely opposed to a federal ID card. We already have the state's card, we have the driver's license, we have whatever. We don't need that, and it's the Constitution doesn't allow that, and etc. etc." Now I was hearing that, and I was saying, Jesus, just to hear that, that was in 2009, I think. I heard it before, after the campaign. That clip, I saw that clip. I was thinking, just saying that here in Argentina would be completely crazy. We have the DNI, this our ID card that
yeah,
is directly printed by an office of the federal government, of our national government. So, who could think about decentralizing that here? It would be completely unthinkable. And I was hearing this guy saying that. I was amazed by the idea. Not by the idea, I mean by the contrast of the different. Like in the US, you still have a culture of liberty that allows at least a minority to think that. In Argentina, it was unthinkable in the late 2000
yes.
and early 2010s. As I told you, it started to change in 2015. That's what I noticed.
I hope it starts to change. Yes, it should be a very, very positive change. I mean, uh, yeah. So, and also hearing there's a lot of cases where they're also sending a lot less money out to the state governments. Is that true?
Yes, yes, because we have
Provincial governments, I should say, not the states.
yes, we have a crazy system of collecting taxes where The states are not responsible for collecting the taxes. They have their own local taxes, of course, but mostly a very big chunk of the money comes from what the federal government collects, and we say co-participates to the other states. So there is a law that is called the co-participation law. It's a law about how the taxes should be distributed among the provinces, among the states. That has, by law, a fixed amount of money that has to be transferred in percentage terms of the federal income. It's a fixed percentage of that federal income that should be transferred to every state or every province. That's by law. That Milei is respecting it, but the states are completely broke. So the federal government also give them what we call discretionary transference of money. And Milei, what he's doing is cutting those discretionary spending transferences to the states.
Yes.
So he's within the confines of the law, but he's using that as a negotiation tool to pressure the governors, because the laws, for example, in Congress, the law that he needs to pass through needs the approval of the governors, because the governors controls their congressmen and their senators. So, and they're mostly Peronist governors, or at least a big majority Peronist, or other brands which are the same as Peronism, like radicals, we call them. They're not radicals at all. They used to be maybe radicals in the 19th century, but they're just lefty socialist governors. And that's what Milei is doing. He's just cutting the discretionary spending that the executive power has in control and he's cutting that to the states.
That's a good move. I've also heard, that just filing your taxes is very complicated. There's one person told me, said you'll definitely get rich down here if you're an accountant. Do you think is there anything that's just being done to simplify that? Maybe going down from 10 forms to 5 forms, or 10 forms to 2 forms. You used to have to take 8 hours to do your taxes. Now you can do your taxes in 1 hour or something like that.
I think if you take only the federal taxes, we are over 100 different taxes.
Oh yeah.
It's not that everybody has to pay those 100 taxes. Probably you have to pay 10 different, but it just goes of how complex is the system, how full of special taxes for different regiments, the tobacco industry or the export industry. We tax exports. I mean, just
you sense. I mean, you get and the
result
of export taxes, and the result of export taxes, nobody sends anything out.
At the federal level, let me just say, at the federal level, we might have 100 different taxes, and maybe we add all the other state and municipal levels of, maybe we have about 160 different taxes in the whole country. So Milei what he wants is to simplify it down, at least at the federal level, down to 4. But he's postponing that for the future. Right now, he already had to concede to the governors for passing the law, reinstating an income tax that Massa, because he wanted to win the presidential campaign, terminated. Income tax for workers that made over I don't know, let's say $2,000 a month, let's say for that, or even less, maybe $1,500,000 a month. So anybody that is making that, anybody that was making maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month was not paying income tax every month. Um, and now he reinstated that, and now people who's making $2,000 or $1,500 a month are going to pay income tax again. It would be for discounted directly on their paychecks. So he negotiated that. Why did he negotiate that? Because that tax is shared with the provinces, with the states, through this co-participation law. And he did that so he could pass this law. Maybe that's what I was saying. That's an indirect way of bribing people, or even direct way of bribing people. So by doing that, which I don't like at all, that he had to do that. Maybe I wouldn't have done it. I understand the limitations, but I also understand another thing, that he gave them that, but the law still has to pass through the Senate, and which something that our politicians are a lot is very, very, very unloyal. Once they get what they want, they might betray you. So I'm crossing my fingers, but if Milei doesn't pass this law this time, there will be a political crisis. Not only because it will be the second time it's failed, but also because he gave the governors what they wanted, and the governors didn't completed their part of the deal. So he will be looked from then on as a weak and stupid president. I mean, it's not, if weakness is smelled by these people, they will crush you. That don't have any doubt about it. He still has a lot of support by the people, so maybe they will have to wait a little more to really go and attack you up front, but they will. They will if they perceive weakness.
That's what a lot of them will do, that if they perceive weakness. What do you? It also looks like he's trying to have at least a partnership with NATO. I don't know exactly what that means, but it also sounds like he wants to try to maybe make a deal with Britain about the Malvinas, if the Malvinas want to come, if they decide they want to be part of Argentina, which I don't know if that will happen. But what do you make of that?
Well, that's such an unimportant thing right now. Really, look, I might have some opinions, but like whatever deal is gonna be ready for the Malvinas, or for the Falklands, are not gonna is not gonna be instantiated like decades from now. So it's good to go back to relatively normal diplomatic relations. I mean, stop the association with crazy countries like Venezuela or Cuba or Russia or Iran or whatever, as the Kirchnerismo did. So that's very very interesting. But in a sense, in general, I would like also a more neutral stance in general. That's more my my like there's no need to go all the way in the other direction. Probably. Well, some people might say, well, if you want to have the international monetary fund on your side, you may be better do this, that, and the other. Yeah, probably. Yeah, in terms of international relationships, but uh, right now that doesn't move. The Everything is so dependent on what we do here inside Argentina that the 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 effect or the result that we can expect from other relations with other countries are negligible in terms of the result we can get
Sure.
here.
Well, I think he's going to try to get some foreign investment though, which could be a good thing and bring money into the country. But yes,
Yeah, okay, but that depends on 95% of that depends on
yeah,
internal reforms, opening the economy, uh, deregulating, lowering taxes, uh, getting spending under control. Normal things that we should be doing
yeah,
since ever. I mean, look, I remember that in 2014, Paul Krugman came to this country. He gave a lecture, and you can find that lecture on YouTube. And he said at one point, he was talking about the fiscal 2014, that's 10 years ago. He was talking about the fiscal deficit going out of control, inflation, blah, 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 and says, okay, look, I don't think you have to always be an Orthodox, but I think there are some situations where you need to be an Orthodox. And this one, Argentina situation, is one of those situations. That's what he said. Paul Krugman said that. So, you know,
if if Krugman says it, you should probably go the other way. But
yeah, but
yeah,
normally, but that's why we are. It's very
I,
difficult for maybe for you Americans to understand our situation. But let me just give you this. We we changed currencies 5 times in the
yeah,
last 50 years. We took out 13 zeros out of our currency, and
yes,
if we are honest, we should take three more for the inflation that has been happening since 2001. So since 2002. Um, so um, like there is no real debate about what Argentina should do. Zero. I mean, only crazy leftists here from Argentina could think that there is a debate. There is no. There is not. When you find an agreement uh, um, that goes all along the spectrum, ideological spectrum here. I just told you Paul Krugman, who is a neo-Keynesian economist. Uh, Look, just forget it. Who are we going to listen to? Well, there are Marxist Keynesians, for example. The governor of the provincia of Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, is a Marxist Keynesian, for example. Well, that's crazy people. Crazy. I mean, it's just bad shit. I mean, just bad shit crazy. I mean, I don't want to bore your audience but uh, there's people that think that you can that inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. They believe that why countries like Argentina can't grow is because when they grow, when a country like Argentina grows, it imports too much from other countries, and that causes a shortage of dollars. So it's not the government spending, the crazy government spending that causes the shortage of dollars, but it is too much economic growth. That's what they think. They call that the external restriction. So I mean, it's like flat Earth level of of
Yeah.
weirdness. And that's a very important part of the explanation on why we rank so low in the economic development, in economic freedom index, and why we have such an stagnated economy.
Yeah, well, this has been a really good talk we've had here. I'm glad we could work this out. You have anything else you want to say before we go?
No, no, just I hope you can drive your problems there in the US also. Much
Yeah,
more difficult than here. Much more difficult.
yeah,
Uh, I know that I would say this: no matter how corrupt our politicians are, there is no more deepest black hole of money than the Pentagon, and I know that for because
yeah,
I really look at the numbers.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
I,
so I used to be, or I still am, a very partisan, a very partisan supporter of ending the Fed. But if I have to choose a priority, I would say ending the Pentagon comes first.
yeah, I think we've got
For
it.
many
Yeah,
things, not
we.
only spending, but also the civil liberties that you have completely um, overstep uh, before, but since the 2001 war scale, I mean
Yeah, that's
warfare state, I would say.
yeah, that's one issue you all don't have to deal with. You don't have the warfare state, and we also don't have. And as far as I know, there's not a bunch of people down there screaming about immigrants coming in. It's. I mean, people say, "Oh, the number one issue in America now is immigration. There are too many immigrants." Which is, and what's going to happen is they're just going to make it harder for Americans to go in and out of the country and build a wall to make it harder for people to leave. I mean,
Yeah. Um, all the problems that people attribute to immigration,
yeah,
when they say me, well, but they go there and they rape people. They just
yeah,
increase your security. I mean, you have a state, increase
yeah,
your security, give people the right to own guns and to use them.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, all the problems that they cite are different problems.
yeah,
Uh, anyways, the the economic benefits of immigration, I don't have to maybe
yeah,
to tell to your audience. And I know there's a problem. I mean, nobody, even people who is pro open borders like me,
yeah,
wants to wants criminals to go through
yeah,
your area. But anyway, they say, well, we're in Europe. They're losing the streets, and look, improve your security, put people in jail, control people. But even then, look, if you watch the murder rate, well, we were discussing another issue now,
yeah,
but maybe we could finish about this. When you look at the murder rate in the first world, it started collapsing in the early 90s.
yeah,
We don't know really why that is, but it started collapsing and it kept collapsing since. In the US, I think the year is 1994. Uh, even with any local increase you can find because of criminals going immigration or whatever, mostly in Europe, because in the
yeah,
US they're not the immigrants who make the bunch of the crime. Uh, any increase, it is very localized and small, and we're very um, still uh, not way near of the levels of of the murder rates we had that the first world had in the late 80s, early 90s. So uh, sometimes you need to look at the numbers and stop looking at sensationalist news or websites or Twitter accounts and think that whatever problem there is, maybe it has other solutions. Other solutions. I don't know if that
Yeah,
resonates.
yeah, we will see. Certainly, I thank you very much for coming on here, Miguel. It's been
Thank you
great
very
having
much
you.
for inviting me. Thank you very much for
Where
inviting
can
me.
we find you on the internet? Just on
Oh,
Twitter or
just
Facebook or?
I have a Twitter, but I don't use it because Twitter
Yeah,
is a cesspool, so I don't. I have a Facebook account. Look
yeah,
for me, Miguel Duranti. It's my name,
yeah.
and you can find me there.
I'm Chris Baker. Please like and subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out my Substack. Go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Thank you, Miguel Duranti. We're out.